Aaron.
Yeah.
Why didn't you say it the first time I said Aaron?
Because it's pronounced Aaron.
You done messed up, Aaron.
Aaron is here, everyone, and welcome back for more SPTV, where every day's a great day not to be in a cult. Guys, today's story is low-key one of the craziest things I have ever heard of happening in Scientology. And for right now, the only place this is being reported is on the Underground Bunker blog. So I'm going to source from that material, but I'm also going to connect some dots and explain some stuff to you, just based on the Scientology world itself, how based on what we know so far, we can say for sure there's a whole lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that we do not know yet, because the explanation for how the world's richest Scientologist was allowed to sue, not only sue another Scientologist for stealing $5 to $10 million from her, allegedly, to turn that money that was allegedly stolen over to Scientology in the form of donations to the IAS, the International Association of Scientologists, how one Scientologist was allowed to sue another Scientologist, and not only sue, proceed with criminal proceedings against this person in Switzerland. There is some unbelievable shenanigans that would have to be going on behind the scenes in order for David Miscavige to allow this to occur. And I cannot wait to tell you about this. By the way, guys, I went live with absolutely no notice. So please do me a favor, hit that like button, burn up the live chat, try to give some YouTube some positive engagement metrics to see if it will let anybody know that I'm doing this video. Okay, let's check this out. Okay, the world's two richest Scientologists were and are, depending on how you want to talk about it, Bob Duggan and Trish Duggan. They are now divorced. Okay, it is not clear. Bob Duggan's worth about $4 billion. It's not clear to me quite how much money Trish got in the divorce. In other words, I just don't know if she can self-identify as a billionaire or not. But just for the sake of the conversation, let's say Trish is a billionaire. Her husband, Bob Duggan, made billions of dollars from a company called Pharmacyclics that was then purchased by AbbVie. I always say AbbVie. I don't know if that's the right way to pronounce it. Anyway, the irony that the world's richest Scientologist became the world's richest Scientologist through the pharmaceutical industry is just a little too much irony for me. But okay. So they got divorced. Bob Duggan has been less visible since the divorce in the world of Scientology. He's not gone on stage and received any new awards. He does still tell the press that he's a Scientologist, but Trish Duggan has been the most visible of the two, continuing to get awards from David Miscavige. Okay, Trish Duggan, Scientology's richest, is keeping another donor in jail in Switzerland. Now, I do think it's interesting that Tony is identifying Trish Duggan as Scientology's richest member, when if we're saying Bob Duggan is still a Scientologist, which Bob Duggan still says Bob Duggan is a Scientologist, Bob Duggan would be Scientology's richest. So I wonder if Tony knows more than he's saying here, but I'm just pointing that out. Okay, so the Scientologist that Trish Duggan is suing is a guy named Ivan Gaspari. Now, guys, one of the reasons I'm doing this video, just, sourcing it the way that I am right now, is I am begging, I am pleading with you under the radar Scientologists to particularly, well, certain ones I'm thinking of, please give me as much information as you can about what is really going on behind the scenes with Ivan Gaspari that would lead to Trish being allowed not only to sue him, but to proceed with criminal proceedings against him. Because here's why this is so crazy. One of the reasons Scientologists aren't allowed to sue each other is so that Scientology doesn't get dragged into the courts, not as an organization, but as a subject. And you have Scientology's biggest donor suing another Scientologist for having stolen money for the entire purpose of giving that money to Scientology. There's no way to sue or move forward with criminal proceedings on this subject without Scientology being the main subject. So in order for, I know I feel like I'm repeating myself 4 or 5 times already. In order for the richest Scientologist in the world to be allowed to do something that's going to harm Scientology, there is something going on here much bigger or deeper than what we can see at this point. And that's what I'm hoping current members will help me understand. Okay. I'm not going to read this all word for word because, you know, it's written in a literary style, and we don't, I don't, for my purposes, I'm just going to try to stick to the facts. So, you know, Ivan has had a bunch of phone calls with Tony, and Ivan's telling his story. And it really starts, you know, Ivan joined Scientology in 2002. In 2016, he moved to Clearwater. In 2018, he was introduced to Trish Duggan's money manager. And I'm going to fast forward in this article here and get to the part that really matters. Okay. Ivan Gaspari got involved in Scientology in 2002. In 2016, he moved his family from the Italian-speaking region of Switzerland to Clearwater, Florida. Only in Clearwater, Florida could Ivan take part in Scientology's highest levels. Ivan was under intense pressure to make donations to the International Association of Scientologists. All Scientologists and former Scientologists know the immense amount of pressure the IAS puts on Scientologists to donate to the IAS. He eventually donated about $7 million. Okay. Ivan was assigned, his own personal IAS registrar. Okay. So by way of brief explanation, there's like the mother church of Scientology, whose main business is selling Scientology auditing and Scientology courses. In fact, it's pretty much the only way the mother church is supposed to make money. I'll tell you what, the mother church of Scientology is not how Scientology makes its money anymore. Separate from the Church of Scientology International, the corporate structure, the mother church, completely separate from it, is an entity called the IAS, the International Association of Scientologists, or the International Association of Scientologists Administration. The entire purpose of the IAS is to, well, back in the day, it was described as it was Scientology's war chest. It was the money. It was you're taking money from Scientologists in exchange for nothing. You give us money, we owe you nothing. You're giving us money because we're going to use this money to protect and safeguard the Scientology religion. We don't really say what that is. Nobody really knows what they do. They kind of pretend to fund things here and fund things there and fund legal battles and pay for new buildings. Nobody truly understands what the IAS does, because the truth is the IAS doesn't do anything. But the prior to the creation of the IAS, there was no way for Scientology to raise an unlimited amount of money. Scientology costs money to do courses in auditing, but there's only so much courses in auditing to do. It would be almost impossible to spend more than $500,000 on Scientology if you were just buying auditing and training. Then they created the IAS. For the longest time, the highest award you could get from the IAS was called Platinum Meritorious, and it was donating $250,000. That was the highest award. There was no other award. It didn't exist. That changed in about 2004 when Tom Cruise got his giant IAS Freedom Medal of Valor, and they created a new status. Well, they had to create a few new statuses specifically for Tom Cruise. They created the Platinum Meritorious because he donated $2.5 million. That's what he was credited for donating at that time. And that was only 2004. At that time, $2.5 million was now the highest award you could get for donating money to the IAS. So they had to create a Silver Meritorious, a Gold Meritorious, and a Platinum Meritorious. Guys, we've come a long way since 2004, 2005. Bob and Trish Duggan have donated over $300 million now to the IAS. They keep creating new statuses because the Duggans keep donating more money. And as the Duggans donate more money and the IAS creates new statuses, it creates a sort of a pathway, a bridge of donation statuses that all other Scientologists can now travel for Scientology clout. Scientology makes more money from the IAS collecting donations than it does from the business of Scientology of selling, auditing, and training. Add on top of that, Scientology's real estate scam, which you guys have heard me talk about endlessly, about the Ideal Org program. Scientology makes more money fundraising for the IAS and fundraising for these ideal org buildings than it makes selling Scientology. And this is one of the reasons why when you look at David Miscavige's behavior and how the Church of Scientology operates, it's pretty clear. David Miscavige does not give a good gosh darn diggity dang whether orgs are actually expanding or finding out why orgs aren't expanding or why orgs don't make money. Why are they broke? Why are they empty? Why does he care? That's not how Scientology makes its money anymore. Okay, I'm mentioning all this because what I'm about to read for you is that this guy, Ivan Gaspari, had his own personal dedicated IAS registrar. Now, the IAS fundraisers, man, these are the biggest, cloudiest people in Scientology ever. And I'm talking about an IAS fundraiser who's a Sea Org member. They're a Sea Org member. They work for the IAS and their job is fundraising. These guys walk on water. They answer to nobody. They are senior to everyone in the corporate structure of the Church of Scientology. They walk into a room and the crowd parts. These guys are like, first of all, they're unbelievably competent fundraisers. And they just have a lot of weight to throw around. So when you got a big Scientology whale, there's a specific IAS fundraiser who's their guy or their gal. Some of these fundraisers are women too, equal opportunity. Okay, so I just want, that's a big explanation for just this concept here, where it says, like other wealthy donors, Gaspari was assigned a particular Scientology registrar to solicit those gifts. In Gaspari's case, that was a registrar by the name of Tyler Pirak. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing that name correctly. The reason I wanted to explain that is because technically speaking, this is not a Scientology registrar. This is an IAS registrar. A Scientology registrar sells you courses, auditing, and books. An IAS registrar does not care about selling you Scientology. They just want as much of your money as possible in exchange for a nice little pin, a commendation, a trophy, and maybe a handshake and a photo with David Miscavige at the next IAS anniversary event in St. Hill, England in October. Oh, okay. So, guys, for you under the radar Scientology folks, any other information you can give me about Tyler Pirak is welcome. I do have some information. That's some of the information that I'm looking forward to sharing with you on this video when it becomes pertinent. Okay. Gaspari says that Pirak was well aware that for more than 20 years, he had been in the steel trading business. One day, Tyler wanted to visit my customers. Then he asked me to show him the figures, the profits of my business. Guys, this is how much of your privacy these fundraisers will invade. This is how much they will invade your privacy. They want to know how much money you have. They want to know how much money you make. They want to know how much assets you have. They want to know how much what your credit limit is on your cards, lines of credit, everything. It might seem unthinkable that a fundraiser could invade your privacy to that degree. This is the power that IAS registrars wield. Okay. So he asked me to show him the figures, to show him the profits. Then he asked me how I could increase my business, scale up. I told him I needed more money from banks. Gaspari said that Tyler Pirak, his Sea Org member IAS reg, told him he would take care of it. And at the IAS event in October 2018, he introduced him to Osman Ozsan, another Scientology donor and money manager in the Clearwater area. Okay, let me pull up a photo of Osman. Osman is the guy who's in the thumbnail of this video. Okay, this is Osman Ozsan. I always struggle pronouncing his name. He is Trish Duggan's money manager. He manages the money for the wealthiest or the second wealthiest, part of the the second wealthiest Scientologist in the world. It's just interesting to just, for no particular reason, that Osman is also the father of Hal Ozsan. I just don't know how to pronounce this last name, guys. He is an actor and a very dedicated Scientologist who takes credit for introducing Rachel Miner to Scientology. I met Rachel when I was in the Sea Org. She was well known for having been married to Macaulay Culkin. And so apparently Hal met Rachel, got her into Scientology. And I'm told Rachel is the one who was convinced to open the Melrose Mission. Okay, so good on you, Hal, for being a good little Scientology recruiter. And it just so happens that Hal's dad is the money manager for one of the wealthiest Scientologists in the world. Okay, back to the story. I just realized, let me show you some photos just to kind of frame the story here a little bit. This is Ivan Gaspari. This is his LinkedIn profile, the CEO of a company that we're gonna, find out about here soon in the blog post. Ivancore, named after Ivan. Ivancore, very clever. And what's one of the interesting things here is to see when Ivan finished his last Scientology auditing services and which service it was. These dates are going to be very, very important, meaning these dates coincide with his story and his falling out with Trish Duggan and her attorney, Stephen Hayes, who I also have a personal connection to. Okay, so you'll see you'll see the last thing that he's credited with finishing is OT2. When you start OT1, you are not supposed to ever stop until you finish OT3. The fact that they stopped him at OT2 is circumstantial evidence that Ivan got in a lot of trouble with the powers that be, and someone intervened on Trish's behalf to basically wage war against Ivan. Also, Tyler Pirak is the Sea Org member IAS Reg. And it's interesting to see here that as recently as 2021, Tyler is credited as being on the senior honor roll of the IAS. Now, the senior honor roll is one of those statuses that you obtain not by donating money, but by raising money. Okay, and let's go back to the blog post. Okay, so Tyler Pirak, the IAS fundraiser, asks Ivan, what do you need to scale up your business? And basically, Ivan needed more liquidity. He needed more liquidity, access to money, lines of credit. Tyler Pirak said, I'll take care of it. At the next IAS event, he introduced Ivan to Osman Ozsan, another Scientology donor. Okay, let's make a company together. Gaspari, let's make a company. Ivan says that Osman. Ivan says that Osman said, let's make a company together. Ozsan then invested $10 million by letter of credit from Bank of America to a Swiss bank. That bank then used it as collateral to give Ivan the equivalent of $9 million in January 2019. Now, guys, I may not know much, but I don't know how you get $10 million of collateral to give a $9 million loan. I also don't know how a letter of credit is collateral. But anyway, what do I know, guys? Okay, they created the company called Ivancore. Okay, in March 2019, just 4 or 5 months later, at the L. Ron Hubbard birthday celebration event, Ivan was approached by Trish Duggan, who revealed to him for the first time that she was actually his investor and that Ozsan was actually her money manager. Guys, I can't tell you how weird it is for me to put myself in the shoes of a Scientologist and realize that I thought one guy had given me $10 million. And 5 months later, I find out it wasn't really him. It was actually Trish Duggan. That's some weirdness. Okay. Okay, then there's part of the blog post explains Trish Duggan and Bob Duggan and how they made all their money. All right. Gaspari, so Ivan Gaspari says that it was clear from Tyler Pirak that the purpose of this deal was to create a scaled up company with bigger profits so that Ivan could donate even more money to the IAS. From that time in 2019, Ivan says that Tyler Pirak, the Sea Org member IAS Reg, was at his house nearly every week asking for donations from the new company, and that he also wanted a taste. This is amazing. This is amazing. So guys, to the best of my understanding, I was never one of these registrars, but to the best of my understanding, the Sea Org member registrars, even IAS regs, are not allowed to personally take commissions on the funds that they raise. These guys raise tens of millions of dollars. If they were taking personal commissions, it would be way too much money. Okay. However, there are public Scientologists who are called field disseminators for the IAS field disseminators. Public Scientologists. They're not staff members. They're not Sea Org members. They're just public. And they are full-time fundraisers for the IAS. These public fundraisers are allowed to take commissions. In fact, a famous actor, well, he's famous because Michael Roberts, a famous actor, he was in Rain Man. He was Vern in Rain Man. My main man, Vern. So when Dustin Hoffman's character was in, the assisted living facility, his main man, Vern, was the guy there who was his buddy. That's actor Michael D. Roberts. He's been a Scientologist for, I don't know, like a couple generations now. And his job for the last 20, 25, 30 years has been full-time raising money for the IAS. Okay, here's why this becomes important. Tyler Pirak, as a Sea Org member, not entitled to commissions. His sister is someone that I believe is named Heidi Pirak. Heidi used to be in the Sea Org. She used to have a high position in the Sea Org. So she used to basically be, we'll say, the assistant to one of the highest echelon Scientology middle managers. In Scientology speak, she was the COCMO IXU's communicator. Not that anyone cares about that. It is my understanding, and this is one of the reasons I want to do this video, guys, for you guys out in the Scientology world. If I have this wrong, please email me and correct me. growingupinScientology@gmail.com. Heidi's no longer in the Sea Org. Heidi is a public. That means Heidi is eligible for commissions on IAS funds raised. Tyler isn't. Tyler circumvented the system by trying to give his sister credit for the fundraising and have a commission go through her, is how this looks, which is unbelievable, an egregious violation of anything that would be considered acceptable in Scientology, especially by a Sea Org member. And if this is true, Tyler is in so much trouble, it's hard to even put words to it. Okay, so Tyler Pirak was basically at Ivan's house every week wanting donations, and he wanted a taste. He was asking for 3% commission under the name of his sister. And he produced a 2022 email from Tyler Pirak's sister, who told Ivan that I heard you're willing to pay a dividend this year based on our pro rata shares in Ivancore, which is very appreciated. The email is proof that Ivancore had been created to generate donations for Scientology, and that Tyler Pirak and his sister expected a cut. Yeah, I'm guessing that if Tyler was having the commission go through his sister, that his sister was definitely kicking back part of that to Tyler. No question about it. By July 2022, Ivan says that Ivancore had $120 million in credit in Switzerland and 10 employees after starting from nothing. He says that Trish Duggan and her attorney, Stephen Hayes, and her money manager, Ozsan, owned 45% of the company, but were not involved in running it. At that point, however, okay, this is where things start to get a little weird here. Okay. At that point, however, Ivan says he went to Trish to make sure that she knew that money from the company that she had invested was going to the IAS. She said, don't worry about it. We'll do an agreement and you can pay it back in 4 years. Right there, there's something wrong with this story. If the entire purpose of creating the company was just to create a vehicle to donate money to the IAS, or to create something that would throw off profit and be the source of future donations to the IAS, then when he went to Trish and said, Trish, I just want to make sure that you know, a chunk of the money that you invested in this business is going to the IAS, you would expect her to say, don't worry about it. No skin off my back. That's the only reason we created this company to begin with, was to create money, flow money to the IAS. So if some of the money that I gave you ends up going to the IAS, who cares? That's okay. But she didn't say that. Instead, she said, that's okay. You can pay me back. Do you see how her response is not entirely consistent with the idea that this entire company was created just for this reason? I just wanted to point that out. Okay. Don't worry about it. We'll do an agreement and you can pay it back in 4 years. So this is coming from Ivan. That's what Ivan says that Trish said. So even Ivan felt that, even Trish said that Ivan had somehow taken money he should not have taken. Okay. A deal was formalized by Stephen Hayes, Trish's attorney, in November 2022, naming Ivan CEO, giving him a salary plus a % of the profits, and obligating him to make payments over 4 years to replace what had been donated. 2 months later, everything changed. Even though by that point, Ivan had already returned almost $1 million to the company. Notice he returned the money to the company, not to Trish. He was told to leave the firm because Steve Hayes and Trish Duggan couldn't work with him anymore. Guys, it might be obvious to you, but I'm just saying it. It is at this point in the story that there is a huge gaping hole in what happened, who knew it, when did they know it. You guys can see that, right? Okay, let's keep going. Okay, yeah, so only 2 months after agreeing to a payment plan to pay back this money, basically, Trish completely does an about face and say, you've got to go. We can't work with you anymore. After January, Ivan says, we did not hear anything. It was a big shock. I had lost the company and its credit lines. In April 2023, so just 3 months later, Ivan's wife met with Trish Duggan to try to smooth over the situation. But here's the thing. What situation? Why did everything go from okay to bad? Trish Duggan was crying. I want to help you, she was saying. I love you guys. Meanwhile, the lawsuit was already set, Ivan says. Days earlier, one of Trish's companies had filed a lawsuit against him. They didn't know about it yet. Trish knew the lawsuit was coming and she was being fake with my wife, crying, Ivan says. Okay, in June 2023, Ivan was under so much stress, he had a stroke. 2 days after he returned to his home from the hospital, the police arrived, picked him up. He's been in custody ever since. Ivan Gaspari, high-level Scientologist, donated $7 million to the IAS, was picked up a year ago by the Swiss police, and has been in custody ever since, even though he has not been charged with anything. The fact that one Scientologist was allowed to do this to another Scientologist means that David Miscavige believes, or has reason to believe, that Ivan has committed some type of unforgivable crime. And let me tell you, stealing money from Trish Duggan to give it to the IAS, in David Miscavige's eyes, is not an unforgivable crime. Because that money went to the IAS. That's where Trish gives all her money anyway. David Miscavige would never allow Trish Duggan to sue and pursue criminal charges against this guy just for taking money and giving it to the IAS. It is my belief that David Miscavige would even personally intervene and say, Trish, we'll work it out. We'll make Ivan's life miserable for the rest of his life. I'm going to take Ivan's money and I'm going to credit it to you. Ivan's dead. For all intents and purposes, Ivan is a nobody. I'm going to send him off to work with Shelly up at CST. There are things Miscavige could have done and would have done to prevent this from happening, unless there's something much more sinister going on that we just don't even know about. Okay. According to the public ministry of the canton of Ticino in Lugano, Ivan Gaspari is being held under a criminal complaint of aggravated unfaithful administration, forgery, and money laundering made by a private complainant, which is Ivancore, meaning Ivan's own business, Ivancore, is the private complainant against him because it is now under the control of Stephen Hayes, Trish Duggan, and Osman Ozsan. Okay. In other words, the Swiss state is prosecuting Ivan under a complaint made by his own company, and he's being held while the state itself does an investigation of the matter. In July, that investigation included an interrogation of the private accuser, which was an interview of Stephen Hayes, Trish Duggan's attorney. Just for the sake of interest, when I was still in Scientology and working for Kurt Feshbach at Falcon Research, one of the other companies that Kurt had was a company called Novus Medical Detox. He also had a Scientology Narconon rehab facility. And what happens is that when someone goes to one of Scientology's Narconon rehabs, they only do cold turkey withdrawal, but there's some things you cannot cold turkey withdraw from. So they realized they could create an additional company to deal with this part of the pipeline of people who had to do medical withdrawal. So somebody would come in. If they couldn't do cold turkey, they would send them over to Novus Medical Detox, make tons of money. I mean, thousands of dollars a day for however many days someone needed. I think they used methadone to get people off, whatever it is. So anyway, so Kurt had Falcon Research, Novus Medical Detox, and the Narconon facility. His partner in the Novus Medical Detox was Stephen Hayes. And before I actually started working for Kurt Feshbach at Falcon Research, I was interviewed by Stephen Hayes for the executive director position of the Novus Medical Detox. And even after the interview, me and my wife went out to brunch with Stephen and his wife. And, you know, I would have considered Stephen Hayes a friend. And he is, in fact, a notorious Scientologist attorney who does a lot of Scientology's dirty work for them. And it turns out since 2017 has been the private attorney of the one, Trish Duggan. Okay, so that's Stephen Hayes. And then, so it gives a whole history here of some of Stephen's involvement in Scientology stuff, which for the purpose of this video, we do not have to get into. Okay, we don't have to get into any of this. All right, at the end of 2018, Osman Ozsan told Stephen Hayes that Trish Duggan wanted to make an investment into Ivan Gaspari. So Steve Hayes created a company called Ferrum C LLC. Quote, and this a lot of these quotes are from Stephen Hayes's testimony to the Swiss authorities. Okay, the family office separates investments through specific creation of specific companies in a three-way call with Osman and Ivan and Stephen. Ivan told Stephen that if he had $20 million in letters of credit, he could generate annual profits of $3 to $5 million. Steve said that Ivan described being an intermediary, bringing together suppliers and buyers, and he agreed to put all of his energies into the new company, Ivancore, and to set aside his previous company, KRC. Now, that's adorable, guys. You've probably heard a lot of former Scientologists talking about certain Scientology concepts, and maybe you've heard them talk about the ARC triangle. If you look at the Scientology symbol, it's an S with two triangles. Well, the bottom, I think the bottom triangle is the ARC triangle. The top triangle is the KRC triangle. Knowledge, responsibility, control. We don't have to get into it, but I just wanted to point that out. Okay, by early 2022, Ferrum, Trish Duggan's company, had invested $20 million into Ivancore. Okay, the public prosecutor asks me to take a position on Ivan's version, which claims that Ivancore was created specifically to generate profits, to then be used for donations in favor of the Church of Scientology. I dispute these statements, says Stephen Hayes. The intention was to invest $20 million in Ivancore. Mrs. Duggan first wanted to make a profit with this investment, and then with the profits, make donations. Stephen testified. But he disputed the idea that the company would make those donations directly. See, this is interesting. Yeah, it's the difference between saying the $20 million Trish invested was to use for donations. It's the difference between saying that and saying, no, the $20 million was invested to create profitable cash flow that would then be used by the owners to make donations to Scientology. It's a pretty clear, distinct, and very important difference. It seems crazy that if Ivan is claiming that Trish gave me $20 million so that I could give some of that money to Scientology, that's kind of obviously false, right? I mean, that's already disproven by the fact that Trish made him sign a payment schedule to repay the money. Like, it's clear that he did take money he shouldn't have taken. It's also clear that Tyler Pirak, the IAS Reg, essentially pressured him to do so, knowing full gosh darn diggity well that it was Trish's money Ivan was turning over to the IAS. That to me is what's so interesting about this story, is that the IAS Reg is actually the villain. The IAS Reg is the one who introduced Ivan to Trish via Osman to get an investment from Trish to scale up his business so that it could make more money. But the IAS Reg essentially just convinced Ivan to give the IAS the money Trish had invested with him. This is wild. And knowing that this is what happened still makes me go, there's no way David Miscavige would let Trish sue Ivan over this, much less pursue criminal charges, because Tyler Pirak is right in the crosshairs of this. Now, guys, I don't mean to shock any of you, but Tyler's wife is the president of Flag. It is my understanding that this person right here, Lena Pirak, the president of the Flag Service organization. And here she is doing a video. I'm going to keep this sound off because it just really doesn't matter what she's saying. Here is a video of Tyler Pirak's wife, Lena, on David Miscavige's personal website saying just what an amazing guy David Miscavige is, because he remembered something from a conversation they had 20 years ago, and he's just a great guy. How in the world would David Miscavige let Trish Duggan sue a guy who essentially stole money to give it to Tyler, who is taking money off the top by routing the donations through his sister? This is crazy. And this is why I said, this is the absolute craziest thing I have heard of happening in the world of Scientology in a long, long time. And there's so much more about this that we obviously do not know yet. All right, let's get back to the blog post. I mean, this is just crazy. Okay. All right, again, more quotes from Stephen Hayes here. The public prosecutor tells me that Gaspari, the public prosecutor tells me that Ivan claims that Ivancore's profits should have been allocated to the church anyway and invites me to take a position. It is a lie. I was there when the company was created. The idea was to create a commercial activity to generate the profits. It would not have made sense otherwise. The financier, aka Trish Duggan, could have simply made donations directly using the same money. Now, that's a very obvious statement of obvious truth. Trish Duggan doesn't need to give someone money so that they can give it to the IAS. Trish can give the money to the IAS herself. So at least this is one place where Stephen Hayes is actually telling the truth. Okay, Stephen Hayes said that it was around September 2022 that Trish began to realize that Ivancore had some obligations to some related parties and that it involved some of Ivan's other companies. Ivancore had operating losses of $5 to $10 million. And to figure out why, Trish had to get control of it. That's interesting that they had an operating loss of $5 to $10 million, considering Ivan donated about $7 million. Now, I realize not all of that $7 million was donated after Trish's investment. And actually, I should have gone back and reviewed the early part of the article. I forget if it says how much he'd already donated by the time he met up with Trish. The article may not have even have said it. But I guess I'm saying there's an awfully close correlation between the amount of money that went missing and the amount of money that Ivan donated to the IAS. Okay. A series of agreements were signed, essentially cutting Ivan out of the operation because they had come to realize that he was a criminal. It's amazing that they call him a criminal because I got to tell you, in the world of Scientology, stealing from Peter to pay the IAS is not really considered stealing. No holds are barred in what you're allowed to do to obtain money if what you're going to do with that money is give it to the IAS. And you might go, maybe David Miscavige just has such a personal loyalty and love and dedication to Trish that he was just so horrified that Ivan would take Trish's money and give it to the IAS, that Miscavige had no idea, but no choice but to support Trish in her effort for justice. I say nah. It doesn't matter how much clout Trish has in Scientology. Miscavige would never allow her to sue a guy over money that was taken to give to the IAS. And here's what's amazing. We're going to get to the part here where Stephen Hayes doesn't even deny that Ivan took the money to give it to the IAS. Okay. Okay. We discovered that Ivan had purchased products with Ivancore's money and had then transferred the same to his other companies, who in turn sold them, collecting the money without paying the amount due to Ivancore. For example, Ivancore paid for some manganese to be transported, but it was then sold by another one of Ivan's companies without reimbursing Ivancore. By the end of 2022, they realized there was a $10 million shortfall at Ivancore, and they terminated their relationship with Ivan in January 2023. Why did they decide to pursue a criminal case rather than simply sue Ivan? Stephen Hayes said, "We believe that the only possibility to be able to recover our overdrafts is for the criminal authorities to find some assets to seize from Gaspari. Otherwise, everything Ivan says is just lies. Stephen Hayes did acknowledge that Tyler Pirak was a registrar who had worked with Trish Duggan. Oh, see, this is interesting. Up until this point, we only knew Tyler as the IAS reg who was assigned to Ivan. But I guess it does stand to reason that the way Tyler was able to hook Ivan up with Trish's money manager is because Tyler was also Trish Duggan's dedicated IAS reg. Okay, Stephen Hayes says Tyler Pirak works for the Church of Scientology and is good friends with Trish Duggan. He assists her when it comes to making donations or other church-related activities. The public prosecutor told Stephen Hayes that Ivan claimed Tyler Pirak was soliciting him to make donations, pointing out that he had the money that Trish had put into Ivancore at his disposal. That's right. Stephen Hayes replied, I find it really difficult to think that Tyler Pirak acted as Ivan reports, since it would be against the principles of Scientology to obtain the money in the way Gaspari reported. This all seems very unusual to me. Oh my goodness. Stephen Hayes acting like it would be so unusual for a registrar to show up at a person's house every week and demand money and want to see the books and want to meet the clients and want to see what the profits were. That is business as usual for an IAS reg. In preparing for this video, I looked for any other mentions of Tyler and his parents, and I found a 14-year-old blog post from the notorious Marty Rathbun with some comments about Tyler's folks who were also IAS. This is a comment on a blog post by Lucy. I think this is Lucy. Is it Hayes? What was their last name? Damn it. I forget. But she was the ED of Birmingham org. Okay. Let's see. Lucy says, there is another point, not Hayes. What was Lucy's name, guys? Hayden. James. Lucy James. Lucy James. Lucy James. There's another point here that may not be known regarding IAS regging. IAS registrars' quotas kept increasing. So what did they do? They started regging the staff. In 2001, I happened to be in London at an IAS event. And to make the quota, the London Foundation staff were heavily regged. Ken Pirak, this is Tyler's father, Ken Pirak was at the event and threatening the CLO executives and the London executives as the quota was not being met. Now, right here, guys, understand it. CLO means the Continental Management Office. And the fact that Ken Pirak, an IAS fundraiser, can threaten the executives of the UK Continental Management Office is an example of what I meant when I said the IAS regs are literally senior to every other person in the Church of Scientology International. Okay. Okay, I knew some of the staff personally, and they were put into huge debt, which puts them under heavy financial stress. So now they were working their day job to pay back the debt and being regged in the evening by IAS registrars as a successful action. I would not allow this to occur in my org. Okay. Let me see. Before I left in 2005, 80% of my staff did not have to work a moonlight job. Now in Birmingham, 95% of the staff do have to work a moonlight job. The deputy executive director paid for her patron. That's $50,000. That's a $50,000 donation, and went into huge financial catastrophe. And her husband, who was basically the HR director, run a sandwich shop out. Oh, they run a sandwich shop outside the org to try to make ends meet. Let's see. There was another comment here. Ken and Mary Pirak have a son who was born into the Sea Org named Tyler. Okay, so this is the one and only Tyler. The Tyler. Ken and Mary Pirak. Okay, so Tyler was born into the Sea Org. Tyler has always been very bright with lots of energy and a mind of his own. As a young teenager, he ruffled some feathers, and his parents asked me to be his legal guardian, which I was honored to do so. Last week, an OT8 told me how Tyler had come knocking on her sliding glass door of her hotel room in Clearwater, Florida on a rainy night at about 10:30 p.m. He was begging her to give him $20,000 for the IAS as he needed it to save his head. Now I read your post and it makes me wonder how far south Ken has gone if he would pimp his own mother for the almighty dollar. Okay, no, I'm sure the word pimp there wasn't being used literally. But there's that. Okay, back to the blog post. Interesting to learn that Ken was born into the Sea Org. It's all he's ever known. And he's completely wrapped up in essentially a financial scam between Trish Duggan and Ivan Gaspari. Amazing. Okay, let's see. So Stephen Hayes, in other words, yeah, no, that's a misunderstanding of. Oh, Stephen Hayes says that. All right, I guess I'll go back. I disagree with how something's being characterized here, but I'm just going to read it. Stephen Hayes, in other words, was saying that it was against the principles of Scientology for a wealthy Scientologist to set up a company in order for it to supply donations directly to Scientology. But records show that Trish Duggan has done this exact same thing with her husband's money back in 2015. Stephen Hayes did admit that there was a certain insistence on giving donations to the IAS when he was asked if Scientology members are under pressure to donate. And Stephen Hayes didn't deny that Ivan Gaspari had given enough money to be considered a diamond meritorious level donor of the IAS. But Stephen Hayes said that what Ivan had done with the money he took from Ivancore was besides the point. I don't care what he did with it. He has stolen. Now, I don't know if quotes are just being selectively. I don't know. I don't know if Tony has access to the transcripts of the interview or what. In other words, I don't know if the quotes that are being represented are representative of everything Stephen Hayes said. But it is interesting that Stephen Hayes does not deny that the money Ivan stole was donated to the IAS. Right? Okay. Ivan says that the entire scheme was based on creating a new company that could make profits that could be donated to Scientology. But then he theorizes that Trish and Steve wanted to take over the company, cut him out, and perhaps just give the company to the IAS. He's lying about everything, says Ivan, about the interview Stephen Hayes gave to the Swiss prosecutors. In the time that Ivan's been in jail, he suffered another series of strokes and has been hospitalized multiple times. But he's getting no indication from the prosecutors about the results of the investigation or when a trial might be scheduled. In a couple of weeks, he will pass a full year in custody. We asked him whether he still considers himself to be a Scientologist. Frankly speaking, I feel like I woke up, and he confirmed that he is no longer a member of Scientology. Well, here's what I'm speculating. Here's what I'm speculating. And this is what I'm hoping that somebody in the Scientology bubble will confirm for me. Some way, somehow, Ivan was declared a suppressive person officially, whether he was informed about it or not, before Trish Duggan ever even filed a lawsuit against him. And I don't know how to reconcile what I believe that's just incredibly likely and the most likely scenario. I still don't know how to reconcile how David Miscavige ever allowed Trish Duggan to file this lawsuit or ever allowed her to pursue criminal proceedings. And I'm hoping that some of you guys out there will give me some tidbits of intel to help me make sense of this, because there's a lot more going on here than meets the eye, in my opinion. All right, guys, that is all I have on this. I do not have the lovely Barb in the back office with me starring comments. So sorry about that, guys. Brain Fog, thank you and welcome as a new channel member. All right, stay tuned, guys. Much more tomorrow. And tomorrow I'm also flying to Minnesota, where I'll be hanging out with Natalie for a week, but I'll still be uploading. And then on Monday, me and Natalie will do an update together. All right, guys, thanks for hanging out with me. Thank you, as always, to everyone who watches until the very end. And I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe.